Welcome to the SEN Cast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the SEN Cast. Each week on the podcast, we talk about a different topic within the world of special education needs and disability to improve our knowledge, to provide support to professionals working in schools, to empower parents and to raise awareness. In this episode, I discussed the effectiveness of EHCPs, the EHCP process, and also the upcoming SEN reforms, but before they were released, which I'll come into in a minute. And I did that with Nana-Kofi Okyere from SEN Bytes. Nana has worked within SEN since 2012, first as a TA, and then he completed a Master's in Special Educational Needs. And he went to work in the local authority as a SEN Case officer, working his way up all the way to service manager level. And Nana started his company, SEN Bytes, in December 2024. Now, as I just mentioned, we recorded this a couple of weeks ago. We were looking forward to the SEN reforms, which we thought were going to be released March, April time. But no. They came out yesterday. As it is recording this intro. I'm recording this on Tuesday. I literally spent every minute of yesterday outside of meetings reading the white paper and the SEN reform consultation document and going through it all. And I wanted to do that before I re-recorded this intro. So when we talk about the SEN reform in this podcast, it is before it was released. We were predicting what it might look like. And what's interesting is we talked about those multiple layers, and I talked about a report similar to People Premium, where schools have to say how they're spending the money and it has to be effective and so on. And that has kind of come true, not full information around it. So please bear in mind the conversation where we're looking forward was recorded a couple of weeks ago, before the release of the white paper and the consultation paper around SEND. But now I've given you that warning, go and enjoy the podcast. My guest this week is Nana-Kofi Okyere from SEN Bytes. Nana has worked within SEN since 2012, first as a TA, and then he completed a Master's in Special Educational Needs. He went on to work in the local authority as a SEN Case officer, working us all the way up to the service manager level. And Nana started his company SEN Bytes in December 2024. Welcome to the show, Nana.
Thank you so much for having me, Dale. It's an honour to be here.
You are very welcome. And right at the beginning, because we are talking about EHCPs and reforms and all that lot, I'm going to point out that we're recording this episode at the end of January 2026, and this episode is going to be released at the end of February. And I don't think the government's going to release that white paper by then.
We'll see. Anything can happen.
But we really don't know. In my head, I'm betting on April personally. Mm-hmm. Probably the last Friday, maybe the Friday the 30th, right before half term type, whenever that is, right before Easter holidays, that's when it'll come out or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've come to talk about a really big conversation, EHCPs, the EHCP process and everything. So to try and have some structure, let's start with the current system. Let's start with those EHCPs and EHCP processes and the effectiveness, and then we'll move on to the reforms a bit later.
Mm-hmm. So when we think about EHCPs and its effectiveness, the one thing that is a challenge is that every local authority kind of deals with EHCPs in a different way. And schools, everyone's got their own interpretation as to what the EHCP is supposed to do. But when it's clearly set out in a code of practice, how it's meant to be used and how it's meant to be deployed as well. And I feel like a lot of times people assume that the EHCP is going to solve all their problems. But then sometimes I feel that almost the EHCP, if it's not used correctly, it can actually create more problems as well.
It's a shame. I think some parents think that kind of getting the EHCP is the finish line. I've got it. I've got it. Everything's going to be perfect now.
Yeah.
No, that was the first lap of a 1,500 metre marathon.
Exactly.
And
This is a warm-up. You've just done the warm-up. The thing is, it's interesting. With the EHCPs, it's an interesting process because, one, it's a 20-week deadline. a lot of local authorities are not meeting that 20-week deadline for many reasons, because we have a lot of contributors to the EHCP. So we have educational psychologists, we have speech and language therapists, we have schools, we have to get parent view, child view, social care if it's needed as well. So you're needing a lot of different ingredients from different services who have their own work to do outside of EHCPs as well. So you might chase a social worker for advice for an EHCP, but that social worker or group of social workers, they might have to go to court that week, or they might have like a really profound safeguarding issue. So every service that contributes to the EHCP, bar the actual SEN team of case officers, they've got a whole bunch of other work to do as well, and they have to squeeze the EHCP into it. So I think in that sense, you're kind of already on the back foot. It's a legally binding document. We legally need to approach other practitioners for advice, but in terms of being realistic in terms of the time frames and the capacity and the expectation, there's a lot there that I think that begs more questions than answers.
I remember when the EHCPs came in, so before that we had the statements,
Yeah.
and it was 3 separate tests: the education, the health and the care.
Yes.
And the assumption was, rather than having 3 tests, let's have 1 test
Yes.
with 3 parts, hoping it would bring it all in, hoping that the healthcare and the social care will be much more like, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
You really, nothing changed.
Nothing. And do you know what's interesting? When my first job as a case officer, I got that job in 2016. The first year of that job, I had to convert statements to EHCPs, but it was literally lifting information from the statement, putting it into the EHCP format and template. It was more or less like a admin type of job, but then what was happening was that a lot of the information that gets transferred is out of date.
Yep.
So realistically, a lot of these young people need a full reassessment. But then again, that's another statutory process. That's another time-bound process. And it's like, you've already got EHCPs doing the 20-week assessment. Now you've got to ask that same EP or speech and language therapist to contribute to a full reassessment. So bit by bit, a lot of services are getting stretched in terms of what they're able to contribute to the EHCP.
And it's also, again, we've got to think about when this whole process came in, it wasn't just the SEN code of practice changed. There was a huge curriculum change as well. So the new primary national curriculum came in. The new GCSEs were coming in.
Yeah.
And I was governing my daughter's primary school, and they generally worked out that the new curriculum meant every child had to be 9 months on average further developmentally at the same point. So the new curriculum, that child in year 4 had to be now year 4 and 9 months to meet the standard.
Yeah.
So the expectation on attainment and pressure on all around that hit. At the same time things were changing. And then there were some stupid decisions or talks by MPs and DFEs around how assessment would work. And they introduced, the first time in 2014, the concept of working below.
Yeah.
Before that, we did have working towards. That was purely for those working below level 1. It was the old P levels, and P levels designed to replace that. The 2014 primary curriculum brought in below, and everyone should be assessed against their year group. And I think that is one of the things that have contributed to everything kind of going really badly wrong, because they're not really identifying where children are working.
No, they're not. The EHCP, so with the EHCP, I think there's 2 major difficulties for me that stand out. One of the difficulties is that if you want to go to a special school, you need to have an EHCP. So a lot of families are applying for EHCPs and again EHCPs, but many of these special schools are oversubscribed. So now you've got an EHCP, but the school that's probably 10 minutes away from you, the special school, you can't get in there, but you've got an EHCP. And if the local authority decide your child should be in a special school, they can even put it in the plan. If there's no space, there's no space. Then you're going to have to go through tribunal. Then you're going to have to wait a year before your child is placed in that school. But then when that child is placed in that school, that's got to put pressure on the school's numbers, and in terms of being able to facilitate all of these classes that might have meant to have had 6 kids in one class, now they've got 12 or 13. Another thing that I think is difficult with the EHCP is that a lot of mainstream schools are applying for EHCPs. All of a sudden, once they get the EHCP, oh, we can't meet his needs, we can't meet her needs. They need to go to a special school, but it's happening for children that are like, it's like they're in year 6 or they're in year 10 and they've been there for 4 or 5 years. Now you've got this document, you're kind of using it to push them out. Yeah. So I think that the EHCP definitely does have a purpose, but it's almost being manipulated at times.
It's hugely being manipulated. And what we got to think about is when we had the statements, I'm not going to quote the numbers, I'll get it wrong, but we had a certain number of statements. Mm-hmm. We now have an insanely much higher number of EHCPs.
Incredibly high.
Now, to get an EHCP, a child has to be complex needs or whatever, need that level of support. But I would say, hand on heart, that a number of those children with EHCPs should not have an EHCPs. And I'm saying should, not due to where they are right now, the challenges they've been through or anything, because everything where they are, that child needs to keep that EHCP. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But they shouldn't have been on that journey. That's the bit that we need to think about.
Yeah.
It's not, oh no, he's not oh no, right now where that child is, yeah, his journey, he needs that EHCP. He needs that support, or she needs that support, she needs it. What we're looking at is where they are right now. If we track that back, what did we get wrong?
Yeah, what was missed. Yeah, I get what you mean exactly.
And I think that's the bit that I'm really hoping the white paper. Mm-hmm. And again, when we think of EHCPs, there's your classroom, all your children, and you're this child struggling, and there is a bit of a fear of you can't do anything without a diagnosis, which is
exactly.
You can bring that support in whenever you want.
Of course.
And there's the notional funding. Mm-hmm. I'll skip that conversation. And it kind of goes along, and then when everything's really gone to blow up, EHCP funding support. Yeah. There's a long way from that child struggling in one area and not getting that support, maybe not having that diagnosis of dyslexia, but you know what? How about we just put the support in? Mm-hmm. Oh, look, it's working. Yeah. And we do that. Wouldn't need, again, not guaranteed, but there are a number of children, if we had that support in earlier, we had that early intervention, we kind of changed that mindset where we're not chasing all that progress, there will be a large number of children with EHCPs who in the future shouldn't have them. That's the bit I think the government's working towards, is for a lot of children, they have an EHCPs because the education system has failed them. Yeah. Not because in reality they are at that level.
And also because the EHCP exists, and some schools, I think what some schools actually do is, if they know or sense that there's a potential to apply for an EHCP, if the parent puts through a request or a school put through a request, that process is going to take them 20 weeks. Sometimes, if they're sure the child's going to get one, they kind of switch off in terms of putting in that support. They're like, they're going to get an EHCP anyway, and they're going to be out the door. Some of them, from the moment they apply for an EHCP, they kind of take the foot off the gas, and they're not as invested.
They're kind of waiting for that child to leave.
Exactly, this is it. And some schools are encouraging parents, have you thought about applying for a special school? Have you put for, they're almost overstepping the line. Again, going back to what we were talking about off in terms of the focus on academics as well.
Yes. And it is that focus on academics is something I talk quite a lot about in webinars and presentations I do, that we are just purely stuck up on the attainment in primary of reading, writing and maths. Nothing else matters.
Nothing else.
That comes above everything. That's the biggest priority of your local authority, your trust leaders, your league tables. I'm going to say everyone but Ofsted at this point. Everyone but Ofsted is pressuring for them to achieve that.
Yeah.
And anything else is just kind of ignored. And there are children who kind of get through that primary and then they're actually not ready for the next stage. They haven't got the independent skills, all the other executive functional skills. They're missed out on all of that. And then there are children who aren't going to get those levels.
No, they're not.
And again, it's not saying it who to blame, but it is a case of you're kind of looking at those who are achieving great, those who are on there, and that schools are still sadly doing that. They're even trying to off-roll them, push them to other schools.
Part-time timetables as well. That's a massive thing now as well, part-time timetables.
And it's just that mindset of that school needs to change. But in reality, it can't change unless the local authorities and the trusts' mindsets are changing.
Schools are only guided by the higher-ups, whether it's the LA or the actual government itself. Like, they have to follow that, but again, schools are because another thing as well, so there's two sides of it. You've got some mainstream schools that have got a reputation for being very inclusive and they want to work with these children and they'll do anything to support these children, but then they're almost put at a disadvantage because they're so good. Every parent, I want my child to go there, and then before you know it, that school becomes full and inundated with all of these children that really, if they were seen to properly at their original setting, they would have actually been okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So a lot of schools are fighting with their reputation because as much as we know that a lot of mainstream schools, they're not equipped or they're not really interested to support these. There's some mainstream schools that are really on it and they're good, but they're suffering as well.
Yeah. The magnet schools, I think they're called.
Yeah.
The magnet schools. And what happens is when they become that magnet, ultimately their results are going to drop.
Of course.
And then those head teachers can get pushed out because the results are dropped.
Yeah.
And they look at that results as that's the only number. And then they're going, right, we need to change this. And it's like, come on, surely. Yeah. And whenever I talk to a parent about this, if someone randomly contact me and go, can you help us? Whatever, and I'll just go, right, what school? And I'll get, is this a website? Yeah, I went, right, let's look at those, their vision, their values. Let's look at those. Yeah. And I just literally quote their 4 values. I went, does that represent how they're treating your child? And it's just immediate that actually, I think they forget the values they have on their website. They talk about respect, and that one there, that can be used so much against schools who are doing. And you look at it and going, come on, you've got those values there. You said this represents you, but in reality, when it comes to SEND, it often doesn't.
This is it, and a lot of parents, for some reason, they don't look at disability discrimination as well. And I don't, and I'm like, as far as I've been working in SEN, which has been a long time, I've never seen many parents go down that route, which is bizarre.
And again, it's touched on something we were talking about before we started recording, how so many parents of children with SEND feel alone.
Yes. That is a massive thing. They are, because I've been to countless annual reviews, TAF meetings, every sort of meeting you can think of, and I've seen parents in tears in these meetings. And like that, a lot of times that's what they'll say. I feel like I'm alone in all of this. I haven't got any help. It happens a lot. And through my journey, through SEN Bytes, when I'm speaking to parents and I'm working with them, they're explaining things to me. I was like, oh, you know that you can do it. And they're like, what? Does that happen? I'm like, yes, it does. And you know, she was like, oh, I thought I was the only one that has to do this. Like, no, there's many others.
But I find it interesting because when you go into like an annual review meeting, what you've got is a load of professionals sitting around.
Yes.
This is their day job.
Yes.
This is just number one of 5,433 I'm going to deal with this year.
Yep.
And I know the rough setup. I know what's roughly going to happen. And I'm not saying people don't care in these. And that's not what I'm saying. But you're seeing it a lot, and you've got a lot to get through.
Yeah, for sure. Then
there's a parent. This meeting is life-changing either way. And I don't just mean that lightly. This literally is my life.
Yes.
This is me. I might be having to, if this doesn't happen, stop working. Our whole income drops. I might have to move. Debt, everything. My child's future, everything. It's such a personal, life-affecting moment for the parent, but also for that child. And I don't know how, with so many EHCPs, with all this stuff going on, how that parent feels alone and uninformed unless that's part of the plan.
But like you said, it's just their job. So even thinking back to it, so when I first started as a case officer, the local authority I worked in, they all do things in different ways. I was doing primary school. So what I will do is I will tell the school, right, we've got all of these kids that are phase transfer, year 6 to year 7 transfer. So we're going to block out 2 days and we're going to have 8 annual reviews. And I'll go to all of these annual reviews. But the thing is, when you get into that sort of setup, it starts to become like either for myself or for the school, almost like a tick box.
Yeah.
Think, oh, we've ticked them all off, we've done that, but it's not really breaking down each individual case as it really should as well. Annual reviews are interesting as well, because one thing that I've realised as well, if you got a young person that goes to a special school, let's say that school goes from age 4 or up to age 16 or 18, do you know a lot of times parents don't even attend these annual reviews because they just know that their child is going to be there, or they will attend the annual review but the school won't really push to actually send the LA the paperwork on time, or if they do, the EHCPs don't get updated regularly, because there's this thing where once they're there, and that's all that matters. They're going to be getting the money anyway. Once they're in the setting, no one's going to move them out of that setting. So there's almost complacency when some of these kids are placed correctly at the right place. But I've seen in some LAs where either the annual reviews are not getting held properly, or they're getting held, the paperwork's not getting sent back, or it's getting sent back and it's not getting amended and updated. But guess what? They're going to be there. Tommy's going to be there until he's like 18. It doesn't matter. The money's coming every single year without fail. LAs have to pay 2 terms in advance. So it's almost like a complacency with some specialist settings when it comes to the overall process.
That was interesting. I was a secondary school, was specialist secondary, and I kind of asked about the transition. They basically said, we ignore the EHCP till we have our first annual review. Because they're not our targets. That's not this. We'll do what we think's best, and we'll have the annual review. We'll sit there and go, cool, now we can set a target. Now we can set a direction.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I'm like, what the... But on the other hand, I'm going, in some ways, you're actually going, right, what does this child need?
Yeah.
Working that out.
Yeah.
We think they need this. What does the HCP say? No, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I was really like, that's just so wrong. Well, come on, this is really important. But then it kind of explained it. I went, it kind of makes sense that you are literally spending that time to find out who this child is.
Yeah.
That EHCP, some of that content could be 5 years out of date.
For sure.
And if you take that is how the child is now, you're going to get a real wrong opinion.
That's a massive thing as well in terms of EHCPs being way out of date. And it's because different local authorities, they do things differently in terms of their setup. You might have an annual reviews team, you might have a backlog team, you might have an assessment team. They're all allocated in different ways. Maybe you allocate the caseload to a case officer A to Z, or you take all of the special schools, you take all of the schools or resource bases. But then there's been cases where one single case officer might hold 300 cases. There is no way they are going to attend all the reviews, update all of the plans, go to every meeting on time and provide. It's just not realistic.
The thing is, even just hearing we split it up by alphabetical or we split it up by school type makes no sense to me. Surely I would look at how many per month and split those equally.
You would think that, but every local authority just splits it in different ways. And I think that's one of the bigger issues, is that we have this SEN code of practice, we have EHCP, so we have something to work from. but almost every local authority allocates and does things in a different way. I've worked in some LAs where you have an assessment team, you have an annual reviews team. I've worked in some LAs where there's just everyone's in one team. So one case officer can be doing phase transfer, new assessments, annual reviews. They're going to mediations. They're doing like 5-6 jobs, where some LAs, all one person is doing just phase transfer and updating plans. That is it. They all do things in a completely different way.
I'm trying to work out which one's the best. And to me, if you're just doing one part of it, that's probably not good, because you want to kind of see the impact of what you're doing and how that feels. So in reality, having a spread makes so much sense. Ideally, if you could follow that charge through, again, that would make sense. But I know, and you've mentioned previously recording that not everyone's in place for that long. So there isn't that lovely thing of, I'll be your caseworker for the next 7 years.
And also, another thing that is interesting to me is that, and I'm not saying everything needs to go linear, needs to go one way. This whole world in SEN, especially local authority, there's no pathway. If you want to be a teacher, you have to do a PGC. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to do law. If you want to be a case officer or work in SEN, there's no real kind of gateway or pathway. I done a master's in special needs because I had a passion for it. Not everyone needs to have a master's in special needs, but there's not no clear way to get in. Some people have come from a teaching background. Some people have come from being a SENCO. You've got people that used to be social workers that come to work in SEN. There's no real clear direction in terms of a pathway to working in SEN, working with EHCPs. It's a legally binding document, but a lot of the people that work in SEN that deal with EHCPs, there's been no training or guidance to actually manage and support this and even write them as well.
So you've worked for a number of local authorities?
Yeah, I've worked for a couple.
So when you go to a new authority, do you have to go through like legal training? Or you just go, this is our policy?
This is our policy. This is how I've been working for many years. This is what they used to do, but we've changed and we're doing this. There's no... Because the main guidance is the code of practice. So as long as you know that and you know a bit of it, then you can crack on.
But when you've gone to a local authority, have they explained or talked you through a code of practice?
My first job as a case officer, for the first 2 weeks, they made me read the code of practice.
I'm happy about that.
Yes. So I had just done my master's, and whilst I was doing my master's, the code of practice just got introduced. So it was already in my head. When I started my job, my IT wasn't set up. They were like, you might as well read the code of practice, which was good. Obviously, it's not the easiest digestible document. However, they actually made me read it because I was working with the post-16 team. So I was dealing with year 11 upwards at the time. And my main job was converting statements to EHCPs. I was going to annual reviews, supporting with phase transfer and so on. And reading the code of practice then was quite helpful. But if we put 100 case officers in a room now and you ask them about different points in the code of practice, so you know what the code of practice is, I would say maybe like half of them wouldn't be too familiar with it. Or even if they are familiar with it, in terms of the day-to-day working, it's different because some local authorities are really good at phase transfers. They smash their phase transfers, but their 20-week assessment timelines are a mess. Some local authorities, their annual reviews are brilliant, but then when you look at how they deal with the families and parents, it's horrible. So every local authority has different areas of priority, which is confusing for everybody. Some local authorities are obsessed with ceasing plans. Some local authorities are working towards getting all of their year 6s onto the appropriate year 7 setting by February the 15th, which is the standard deadline. But then whilst they're so focused on year 6s, they're forgetting about the year 3s. What about the year 8s? What about the year 7 that have just started that are struggling? It's unbalanced.
It is, and there is, and Jen, sometimes you can sit there and go, okay, so they're focused on annual reviews, they're focused on transitions, they're not meeting that 20-week assessment, and you can just argue is they're just trying to not increase their number of EHCPs.
Yeah.
But other times when you look at it going, I can't think of a reason, because with these annual reviews, generally it's kind of ultimately checking we've got the right support and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not checking that, actually things can be getting worse and then might require more funding.
Yes.
So in reality, it makes sense to keep up and monitor where we are with things, to kind of keep things, again, I'm not saying money is the sole thing, but to local authorities it really is.
Mm-hmm.
So by not making sure these things are happening, or kind of the transitions, if they're going wrong, that's going to lead, every time it goes wrong, it's going to cost more.
Of course. And it's so interesting you said about money as well, because one thing I'll say, I'll refer back to my first job as a case officer. Do you know, obviously part of the case officer's role was taking cases to panel. We had an interim head of service at the time. She was amazing. Don't get me wrong, nothing bad to say about her. But then part of my job was take cases to panel. So it would be requests for independent placement, reassessment, new assessment. Anytime I would take a case to panel where parent is requesting maybe like 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or independent, I always used to get agreed. And I used to think I am the best case officer ever. I will come upstairs and I'll be fist pumping. I'm like, yeah, I got the school, blah, blah, blah. For like about 5-6 months, that's how it was like. Everything was just getting agreed. Then when our actual head of service came back and the interim went, he was like, where is all the money? And I was like, oh. So I thought I was doing a great job because I'm getting every parent what they're asking for. You're an amazing case officer, you're so good, I wish you was my case officer before, blah, blah, blah. But then now you see my head of service, he's like, we need to cut all the way back on our spending, because now we've got a massive overspend where we've got a lot of young people with needs that are way outside of borough. So if the placement is 100 grand a year, remember we have to pay for transport too. So then you might as well, that's like 110 grand a year. And if they've just started, they're going to be in year 7 and they're going to be there for 5 years till year 11. That's 500 grand for one kid.
Yeah.
So the money thing is an interesting thing. And it's like, we do have to have these kids' best interests at heart, which I did, especially back then. I was just giving away anything. But it's like when you break down the numbers, so even if one local authority has 2 kids in year 7, all the way up to year 11, both 100k each per year, that's $1 million gone on 2 kids.
And again, there are always going to be some children who need that.
Facts, 110%, 100%.
But in reality, that child in year 7, actually, if we look back at their trajectory
From the beginning, like
from
what
the
you
beginning,
said, yes, exactly.
was everything fine? Was everything going great?
Mm-hmm.
And then actually in year 3, things started going wrong, and they kind of got ignored.
Yes.
And maybe the school didn't want to have the difficult conversation. Maybe no one was confident enough. Maybe we weren't sure, but we didn't want to label. And then it gets worse, and then the parents, and we go, actually, it's the bad parenting. That comes out, and it goes on. And in reality, what are you doing? We don't have anything. We have no resources. We can't do anything. And it ends up with an EHCP, which is now going to cost $500,000 over 5 years for secondary.
Yeah.
If we track that back to those early bits, put a bit of support in. Actually, don't just care about English and maths. Actually, how is this child doing? What actually are the barriers? And generally, it's in those softer skills, the pastoral. There might be things going on at home. There might not be. Whatever it is, what is that support? How that, in reality, is what is missing.
Exactly, I agree.
Early intervention and that priority for it. Where does that priority come from? Because at the moment, there is nothing pushing that early intervention.
No. And also there needs to be good multi-professional working. One of my best days as a case officer, I went to a review for a year 6 girl. She was wheelchair bound. She was at a mainstream school, but academically, she was doing great. but she had her own physical needs. I think she had some issues with her confidence as well. But the primary school was brilliant. They fully adapted everything. So as part of the annual review, we've obviously done the annual review, updated and amended the plan. But at the annual review, we got healthcare there, we got the EP there, we got all of the relevant professionals there. And I was like, when I see all the professionals out there contributing, it makes me want to write the best plan I can write. So I've done that, and I've consulted the school. When I consulted the school they saw she had some physical needs. So I arranged another meeting after the annual review process with the preferred school, secondary school, the current school, parent, and the other professionals as well. So we held that meeting together. They looked at the current school to see how things were working mobility-wise and access-wise. The occupational therapist went to the secondary school to go and have a visit, met with the SENCO to be like, this is how things should work and are going to work. The disabled toilets, let her leave the classroom 5 minutes early before the whole school is getting busy and packed. And eventually, school advised they could meet needs, provided we put the funding, which of course we did. It was a mainstream setting. And it was just such a perfect case, because all of the services were all working together. And I was happy because that SENCO could have looked at the plan and said, we can't meet needs. She actually came into the school, met the young person, looked around the school, and then everybody met at the table. But this is the thing, that was amazing. But that kid is one of thousands of kids in that local authority. Every meeting should be like that meeting I had.
And that's one of the things I've come across a lot is that phrase, we can't meet needs.
Oh yeah, gosh.
Okay, what does needs mean? Because it doesn't actually specify it. Actually, there's a provision. Mm-hmm. There's a provision specified. Mm-hmm. And I always ask, okay, again, it's when somebody they can't meet, well, why can't they adapt? It would be cheaper for a local authority to add something onto a special school than to 100 grand, 5 years, specialist setting, out of borough, taxes.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. Also, once that's adaptation in there for one young person, any person can use it.
Of course.
And sometimes when I hear that phrase, we can't meet needs, what you're really saying is, I don't want to, because I don't want to adapt. This is us as a school. Yeah. This is what we do. Yeah. This is how we work. I ain't changing.
If you don't fit inside this box, we're not interested.
And there are some schools who are literally going, yeah, we'll find a way. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's the school you want. And it was somebody, and I loved this. It was, didn't hear this from a school in England, this bit. It was from an international school, and it was a fee-paying international school. And I did a podcast with them, and they realised that you might have like an older brother comes to the school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, he's intelligent, he can do all this, he's going to get the grades. Then the younger brother who's maybe dyslexic, and the other schools would just go, oh, he's not going to get the grades, that's going to hammer no, you can't come here. You basically said his brother can, but you're not good enough.
You're not good enough, yeah.
And the school looked at her and went, no, we're not doing that. No, any child can come to our school.
Yeah.
So now what you've got is any parent who thinks one of their children isn't great enough, or for any reason, they will choose that school because their children go to the same school.
Exactly.
No one's saying you're not good enough. You're not as good as your brother. Your sister's better than you. No one's saying that. And when I hear about inclusion and specialists is best and all that lot, does that child just want to go to the same school down the road that every single one of his friends goes to, that every single person on his road goes left? Does he want to go left with them, or does he want to go right to a different school, or does he have to wait for a taxi? What are you saying to that young person? And actually, that's a big thing. When we talk about all these things, we're doing it from a perspective of maybe understanding what that child really needs. From we have that perspective of lived experience. We've gone through the system. We have all that information. But from that child, from their perspective, they just want to go to that school. Now, if they go into that school and go into a different classroom, into the resource unit or wherever it is, to that child, that's still the same school.
Yeah,
They're still
yeah.
going to be with their friends at lunchtime. It doesn't hugely matter. They're there with their friends. And that's a really powerful thing to think about. How many people would, maybe go to the primary school with their friends and suddenly get told you can't go to that school when it's secondary.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the problem. There's no clear unified approach in terms of how schools are meant to be responsive to these consultations, because sometimes this is the problem with the EHCP as well. If the school receives a consultation and the paperwork is out of date, they might have old information, and they're making decisions based on old information. What should be happening in an ideal world, when a consultation is issued out, one, it should be updated paperwork. Two, the school should go out and see the child or invite the child in. But not a lot of schools are doing that. I think if the paperwork is up to date and you've seen a child in your school, or you've gone to visit them at their school or their nursery, and you make a decision off that, no problem. And then, because the parent will be like, yeah, we was there, he didn't have a good time, I don't think it's the right place for him. I've had that a couple of times, but it's not a lot of times. A lot of times it's just based on paperwork. And now with the whole AI arrival, I'm not even sure, I can't even guarantee that Senkos are reading everything.
No. Okay, so I think we've covered EHCP. I know we could keep going. But again, looking forward, we've got the white paper coming.
Yes.
And again, if we look back, 2014, Code of Practice, but we also had the new primary curriculum. And also at that time, we were full on, I can't remember actually when it started, but we had academisation.
Yes.
So none of that really has taken into account the Code of Practice. The Code of Practice was local authority schools, run by local authorities, SEN local authority. Now we have the trusts going over multiple local, the whole landscape has changed. So, what would be a good thing to change? What good changes would you like to see?
What I think local authorities need to get better direction. And what I mean by better direction is that local authorities often, they all work in silos. Might have a local authority in East London and then a local authority that's based in up north, but they work completely different, in a different way. The local authorities need to work in a similar way in terms of how they're working towards supporting cohorts of young people, special education needs, whether they're on a SEN register or whether they've got EHCPs. Schools as well need to have more accountability. I believe schools need to have more accountability, because a lot of time, going back to what you were saying, we can't meet needs. Have you exhausted everything? Have you tried this? Oh, we've got a teaching assistant working with this young person. It's not working. Have you tried switching the teaching assistants? Because I've worked with kids before. I've had kids that I've worked with. They don't listen to me. But you swap with somebody else, they're fine. But does that mean, if you stuck with me and it wasn't working, is that child not appropriate for that setting? Or are they? But you just need to make some adaptations. So there needs to be more flexibility and more accountability from the school context. And I think whatever's decided moving forward, it needs to put the child at the centre, because we've been saying child-centred approach. We need to listen to the child. A lot of times it's been said almost just for the sake of it. It's almost said like it's a tick box. Oh, they got Section A. Yeah, they got Section A. But in practice, are you actually listening to their voice? And it's like a lot of times, especially when it comes to school-based decisions, you got some young people, they don't have the capacity to advocate for themselves. And I know that. But we need to start giving opportunities for these young people to advocate for themselves as well. Because I think that's something that gets put to the side.
I think children's views easily get ignored. So if you ask a child, what do I want? I want to be with my friends, I want to do this, I want to do this. You can always go, some people go, I don't really want, they haven't got great dreams, aspirations. It's really clear, they want to be with their friends.
Yes, and that's okay.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. That's okay. The white paper is an interesting one, because what I don't want is money. I don't want money to be the driving force behind everything, because I've seen local authorities commission money to schools, APs, and the money's been released. They've been given the money, but it's how is that money being used creatively and effectively to support young people in the short and the long term as well? Because a lot of times things are short-term based and not thinking long-term.
I think money is always going to be a big part of the conversation.
Of course.
But I think what everyone's got to really realise is the number of EHCPs and the amount of money being spent is an indication that things are failing and things are going wrong.
Yes.
And ultimately, we do want to reduce the number of EHCPs, and we want to reduce that. Why? Because if there weren't any EHCPs for those children, they would be getting their grades.
Yes.
They would be getting their GCSEs with their peers. They wouldn't maybe be as anxious. Many things, that their mental health would be so much better because they haven't been down this negative path where they're blamed, their parents are blamed, their parents stop working, and that, all these things that are going
That's so
on
common as well.
because of the schools have failed, and you've had to get an EHCP to get what. Let's stop the failing. That's to me.
I agree.
If we stop this failing, if we really just full on early intervention, the number of EHCPs will drop.
Yeah.
And if any parent says, "Oh no, we have to keep them," it's like, no, not for your child. Your child been through the system, has been failed, that stays.
Yeah.
But do you really want other parents to go on that journey just to make sure they get their EHCP? Or would you rather, and generally parents can sit there and probably point at meetings where things went wrong, point at things where they didn't get the support. If that support was put in there and things were in a different direction, that is probably what most people want. But I think, so we're all hung up on EHCPs because it's seen as this golden ticket to get the support. So recently they've talked about the multi-tiered system. There's been leaks.
Is that real, or is that, I don't know, because I saw it, but I'm not sure if it's definitely true.
I've been thinking probably for about the last 6 months or so they're going to go to a multi-tiered system.
Really?
Because they're saying pre-2014, and again, before we started talking, we were talking about the kind of number of people leave the working profession, the teaching profession, of how many people in the industry, how many teachers, how many parents were fighting the SEND battle when we had statements. Not many. Most of the parents would have probably gone through the system in that time.
That's quite interesting, actually.
So 12 years since the code of practice came in. 12 years. So a child would have to be from year 1, they'll be in year 12 now.
Yeah.
So most parents and most teachers have only ever known the current system.
They don't know what predates that.
Predates that was statements. I'm not saying they were perfect. There are loads of things everyone loved about the code of practice, and they removed the accountability, and never mind. But they did have SEN Plus, or SEN Action Plus, and then statements. Statements was not unlimited money, but the funding to receive the education. But that SEN Plus meant additional funding to provide the support where they were. I'm going to say it's like pupil premium.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, you tick a box. There'll be some, again, this is the bit everyone's worrying about. What's the criteria? What's the category? What's this? That's the bit that's going to be up and down, because it shouldn't be, you have to prove it. We shouldn't have a mini EHCP to get that. That should be quite blasé. That should be like, we're trying this, it's not working. Have you done this? Yes, right, here's the money. That's how it needs to be. But if that money then puts that support in, and again, some schools, let's say it's not going to probably be a bit more, might be that $4,000. But if there are 10 children, that's $40,000. That could be a new member of staff supporting certain needs for those pupils. That could have a huge impact.
Of course.
That those children, by having maybe that time out of classroom to work with that person, to maybe look at not just the academic, but the softer skills, the SEMH, the communication, interaction, and work on them, means that child can stay in that school, means they're kind of on that trajectory, EHCPs avoided. Not EHCPs avoided because we're trying to get out of it. EHCPs avoided because we haven't failed them.
We've actually put something in place that's working for them.
Yes.
But so wait, so I'm gonna ask you. It's not my podcast. I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah.
With the white paper and then looking at stepping away from EHCPs, do you think it's gonna have an impact on special schools?
So, what I would say is, I think how it was, generally every single child in a special school had a statement years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that will stay the same. I think. But again, if we think of, and you can ask parents, and I do, because literally going like they're like emotional based school avoidance, so children who now cannot go to school.
It's common.
Generally, that's not because they're bored.
No, of course.
So generally, then it's not because they're bored. It's because they cannot. Not they choose not to. It's they cannot due to trauma. Okay, but then actually, what happens is they can maybe still go other places. It's that actually it becomes just a school they can't go to. If we don't have that trauma, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
If we don't have that trauma, that's not going to happen.
Yes,
if they're emotionally based school avoidance and EHCP, no trauma, no EBSA, no EHCP.
Yeah.
That is going to, without a doubt, reduce the numbers.
Of course. It's just that early targeted work.
Yes.
Because a lot of young people, because a lot of my experience has been like working in post-16. So now I'm dealing with young people that have had EHCP majority of their lives. But there's still not clarity in terms of what the next steps are going to be for this young person. Even though they've had a plan for X amount of time, school's been getting money, family have been getting money, but what is their long-term plan? They finish this college course, wonderful. What are they going to do with that? I'm not saying they need to go and join a workforce straight away, but what do things look like for this young person once their EHCP is done? Because it has to have served the purpose.
That thing, I did a whole podcast about that whole kind of cliff edge of post-16. It's a horrible cliff edge that no one knows comes. No one knows it's coming because you're literally toddling, you're bouncing along with your child. You've got REHCP, life is good.
Yeah.
Then you hit college and maybe the transport situation changes as well, which no one warns you. And then your child does that course, they get that qualification. Now what? That's the end.
Yeah.
And again, I think there are certain myths that an EHCP goes up to 25.
Yeah.
No, it can.
It can.
If the need is there.
It's required. And they're still on a pathway that's leading to something. It's interesting. I had an annual review. This was before COVID with a family. When I tell you the young person was 23, about to turn 24 that summer, the mum was crying in a meeting. She had gone to special school up until she was age 19, finished age 19, gone to a college, done a repeat year in that college. The college said in that review meeting, we're done. You can't stay here anymore. We're done. Mum was crying in the meeting. What's going to happen with her? She needs to go somewhere. But these conversations should have been had many years ago. So I was like, okay, I'm going to consult a local college. The college responded saying, we can meet the young person's needs, but they're going to be repeating what they've already done before. And we told parent, she was like, yeah, I wanted to go. Until she's 25. Okay, so what's she going to do after? That's the thing. And it's like, we don't want them to be in somewhere just for the sake of it.
No.
It needs to be functional.
It shouldn't just be, it needs to be working towards something. And the other golden ticket that parents feel is fighting for a one-to-one. Why are you fighting for a one-to-one? Because no one cares. My child is just left in the corridor. My child is just sits outside this room. The child just sits in I want someone to be there. And you're going, again, that's nothing really to do with the child. That's to do with that school failing that child.
Yes.
For whatever reason, okay? And again, we can't meet needs, or is it you can't adapt to meet needs? But that whole thing of that one-to-one, and somebody said it, and it was one of the things where they said it was like, that is so obvious. A teaching assistant's main aim is to make themselves redundant.
Yeah.
Because in reality, the TA isn't there to teach them maths. They aren't there to teach them English. They are there to teach them to be independent. So they're helping them with the maths and the English and teaching them skills and helping them, right, this is what you need to do, learning those things, rather than just maybe implicitly just learning through, maybe explicitly going, right, this is the expectation, this is the routine, this is what we go through, right, what do we do here? And you're teaching those skills that actually the TA can sit back and relax, just there for a bit, and then ultimately the child should be on their own in that classroom with all the skills and the confidence they need and the teacher knowing what they need.
Exactly. That's crucial.
It's not just about the child, it's that teacher learning from the TA, what does that child need, how do I support them?
Spot on. Because I've been a teaching assistant. But I worked in 2 special schools, so the young people I were working with, they were quite challenging. So there were young people that were labelled as one-to-one, but what I started to learn to do towards the end of me being a teaching assistant was that my approach was like, I'm basically their bodyguard for the whole day. Wherever they go, I'm there. But then what I started to do was take a step back. Okay, you know what? Put your bag up by yourself. When you're finished eating, put your plate on the tray. Use the toilet by yourself. I'll stand by the toilet. You know I'm here, but you can do it by yourself. Or I'll help you wash your hands a few times. Next time I'm not going to help you. You wash your hands. Or if you need me to help you, tell me and I'll come and help you. So that's one thing about special school culture. From my experience, there's a temptation to want to do everything for them as a one-to-one. But you have to realise, hang on a minute, this young person's not going to have me or member staff walking around with them 24/7 through their whole life. You have to give them some points to try and do some things by themselves. So what I used to do was, when we're transitioning around the classroom, I'll have my kid that's like one-to-one, and I'll be like, oh, we need to take the register, bring another kid. So I'm working with 2 kids. So I'm giving them a little window to interact. Maybe they might hold hands, they might talk or repeat something, but that is them trying to be sociable independently without me, rather than me just being a security guard all day.
Also, when you're that security guard, you're literally being a bouncer. No, you're not allowed to talk to this child. No, I'm here, don't talk.
Yeah.
And basically that child just becomes isolated.
Yeah.
Now, the parent might feel, oh, my child's safe, they've got this person with them, but is your child making friends? Is your child experiencing primary?
Exactly.
Are they doing all these things? And by stepping back and introducing another child to actually, I'm there to make sure it's all right. I'm prompting.
Yes.
No, we're turning right here. Come on.
Yeah.
That's what you're building those skills. And I think with the white paper and social media, everyone is worried.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the government does want to save money.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
We know that for sure.
But the only way to do that is to meet need better.
Earlier.
Because the legal requirement isn't going to change.
Never.
The legal requirement cannot change.
Exactly.
Not because the government doesn't want to, but they know it will go very badly if they do.
Yeah.
And they will know every court will just go against them. The Lords, it just won't work. And no matter what people say, it won't.
For sure.
So they have to reduce money by meeting need better. And the only way to do that, and every single bit of research, is earlier intervention. But the whole kind of education system has changed in the last 10 years with those academy chains. That's got to be taken into account as we're doing these things. And the local authority's responsibility, does that need to be increased? Does that send additional for the SEN Plus? Does that funding come from the local authority, or does it come direct from the? And there's change in the budget, so there are so many we don't know. But whether or not, I think the saving money overall is going to be a good thing.
Yeah, because you can probably reinvest in other areas, maybe specific target areas, maybe around speech and language, because that's a big thing now with young people. A lot of them got speech and language difficulties. You've got young people who've got mental health with their anxiety as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that money that's getting used for this can be siphoned off to support this area as well.
And I'm sure what they can probably do is quite quickly look at how many children or young people's EHCPs are likely to end in the next 12 months. And that will give them a number.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
But in reality, see, that could tail off, yeah? The current EHCPs, hopefully the numbers will tail off. It will take quite a few years. And we'll need that extra investment. But it's not a long term. It's not this will be invested for 10 years. In reality, we're looking at maybe 5 years worth of investment.
Yeah, yeah.
Reducing the number of EHCPs each year by being better, not by just being more difficult. I really don't think that's the aim. It's meeting the need better, which will mean schools need to change and things like that, and the accountability needs to move away from just reading, writing and math scores. But if that all changes, then the EHCPs will drop, which generally means that all the social care, the health, the education, everything, it's not just those, all these costs drop. When you ask teachers, what do you spend most of your time doing? Behaviour, managing behaviour.
Yeah.
If we, again, better support, better training, maybe look at how we do that. If that's going to drop, then we should have a happier workforce.
That's what we're hoping for. The only thing is, with the EHCP and then potentially moving it, I think the main thing that people are worried about is their legal right.
Yeah.
That is, I don't know how they're going to, when this white paper comes along, that needs to be addressed and that needs to be clear. Because I think that if it got removed, but parents still had the legal right to appeal certain things that were put in place, I think there'll be a lot less anxiety. But it's like, if you're going to remove the EHCPs and there's still no sort of like legal cushion for parents, then that's when we're in a tricky place.
But I think what their really hard job is to have that legal cushion.
Yeah.
But to hold local authorities and trusts to account.
Yes.
So if they literally look at this child and you're looking at all the evidence and this child was on track, not a concern, nothing raised 4 years ago, and you're like, okay, so what went wrong? And you pull this history and like, so why didn't you ask for funding at this point? Or you were given funding, what was the impact of that?
Yeah, that's true.
There should be this thing.
There needs to be like a clear point where things are explored before you get to a certain level.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. There needs to be looking at things earlier. Because what you do have is you've got some families where they got siblings that have got additional needs. And then you've got the older young person, and then you've got the younger one. The younger one can do better because mum has seen where things have gone wrong with the first one. So we're not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
I'm making sure my second child is going to get through this and that. And then you can see there's a clear difference between the two.
Yeah, and it is just that the parents learning, understanding. Again, parents, not saying you've done anything wrong. Everyone does the best with their understanding at the time.
Of course.
You just learn, okay, I shouldn't have been that stricter parent. I should have I shouldn't have butted heads with them. Actually, that's not the way that works. I do this instead. We get better out. And you learn. But that's the thing. I think they probably are going to change the legal definition, because of an EHCP or an EHCNA may have a special needs or has a special. That's the criteria, and I think that criteria will change, but only probably as hazard which isn't supported by.
Okay, got you.
So, i.e., it's basically saying, I'm going to say maybe the bottom 5%, 10%, and it's going to kind of keep it in a zone.
Yeah.
You kind of have to. But there's a whole other game of, well, what does that really mean? Where is that line?
Yeah.
But there has to be another line which that support, and again, even the Conservatives, when they talk about the school and AP improvement plan, was early intervention, more money readily given. You do not have to fight for it. So in reality, there will be someone skipping around a local authorities, just throwing out money like nothing, passing it to schools, because actually, instead of paying 2 children 100 grand over 5 years being $1 million, actually that's a lot of £5,000 I can give to schools.
Yeah. Which is better than paying 100,000, 50,000 to a school that's out of borough that you can't even have oversight on properly.
And again, if we think of pupil premium, where you're kind of saying, you've got this money, what are you doing with it? SEN premium, £5,000 per child, you've got 100 kids, that's £500,000 if my maths is correct, or I don't know, don't ask me. Thinking on the spot. What have you done with it? What's the impact?
Exactly. That's it.
That, to me,
That's it.
That, if we have that to me is probably going to make a much bigger impact than people realise.
Yeah, yeah. But then also it's going to take time.
Yeah.
People need to be patient. Whatever happens, there needs to be time afforded to be like, okay, let's wait and see how it all.
It's got to be that transition.
Exactly.
It's not going to stop those who've already been failed. So there's going to be lots of children who are still going to, but that number over within, again, problem is we're still talking, even though the white paper's coming out this year, nothing in reality is probably going to change till September 2029.
No.
And that's going to be the start. That's going to be the transition years.
Yeah.
So we are still talking 4 years or more on the current system.
See, these are kids that are not even born yet.
Yes. So almost like everyone, I think the EHCP, but in reality, starting 2030, the aim is we'll see reduced numbers of EHCPs. Not that year.
Yeah.
Starting the year after.
Yeah.
Because actually they're recognising, now we can access this funding. We can do. And there's, as you said, there are lots of schools who are.
Yeah.
There are lots of schools who aren't, not because they don't want to, but they don't have the money.
They don't have the money, no.
And actually accessing that money, boom, they can start to do that.
Exactly. So I'm hoping whatever happens next promotes more inclusive practice from the schools. There's more accountability as well, and there's early intervention.
Yes. And I think that is what the white paper will bring. But what we're all wanting is we don't know yet. So everyone goes for the worst case scenario. Everyone gets the fear.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my child's EHCP, which right now I kind of get. I don't see it happening. I really don't. But my frustration is, however it's going to be this white paper, that is not actually going to be the final result, because it's got to go through a consultation. It's got to go through the Commons, the Lords, and bits will get stripped out, bits will get added in.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for it to come out, but I'm also I'm going to read it, think about it, knowing it's going to take 4 years to really come in, and it could change at any point. So if your child's in year 11, year 10, year 9, year 8, that white paper's not actually probably going to affect your child.
That's a good point. It's not going to be like, that's what we're doing, and then it starts.
No.
It has to filter down.
Even if you're in year 7 right now, as it's only going to be coming in when your child's in year 11, 12, you're still in the transition years. It's going to have no effect. In reality, it's only going to really affect years 4, 5, 6 and below.
The littlies, they're probably going to be the ones. And then also the structure of local authorities in terms of the actual SEN team. Is there going to be much use for some of them? If we're going to enter this tiered system and we're moving away from issuing out many EHCPs, some people probably not even going to be needed, or maybe they have to get redeployed somewhere else.
You could throw in a complete curveball of SEN teams within academies, because they talk about SEN funding coming locally. There's so many curveballs they could throw in. There's so many, we just don't know. Yeah. So I'm not going to speculate huge, but I personally think the multi-tiered system is a good thing, because it's
Is
early.
it 4 tiers? It's 3 tiers or 4 tiers?
People 4 tiers, but I don't know if 4 Ks is your non-SEN. 4 tiers is your non-SEN, your SEN, your SEN plus, and EHCP. Yeah. Or if it's 4 tiers of SEN. I don't know.
And can you move tiers? Yes. Okay.
That's the thing. It's sort of like your notional budget, you're doing a bit extra. That's not enough. Cool, we'll go to the next tier.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay, we're trying that. We're using that funding. Actually, this is what we're doing. It's working for those 3. It's not working for that. We need something else. Cool. Let's go to whatever they're going to call the EHCPs next.
Can you move down a tier?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's ceasing an EHCP at the moment is like a cliff edge, isn't it? There's nothing.
God. Yeah.
But actually, if that school can identify, actually, we've put this really big load of work in. We've actually really supported their SEMH and their communication interaction skills. And actually, they're doing really well in the classroom with no real additional adaptations. There's no need for the EHCP. But actually, we still need some support in this area, which the previous tier can cover. That to me, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Now the problem is throwing loads of local authority and all the bureaucracy and everyone fighting and the legals and the accountants.
Yeah.
It may all go wrong.
There's always that chance. There's always gonna be that chance as well, because whatever's next needs to be explained clearly to LAs and to schools.
And it has to be a national, one single system. Everyone follows the same rules.
Even, for example, even annual review templates. Every local authority's got their own template.
Has to be one.
Has to be one. EHCPs, everyone's got their own template. There has to be one.
Yes.
And there's no excuse for that if you're trying to reduce them.
No.
So it should be easier to do that.
Definitely. Right. We've talked way over our 45 minutes. Someone's probably sitting in the car going, yes, well over. I'm sat in my car now for 10 minutes. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
No, I enjoyed it. No, thank you for having me, because, yeah, it's just because I've seen the two working in a classroom, working for the local authority. You just see, obviously, dealing with the parents as well. There's just different sides to this whole SEN world.
And although we always blame the local authorities and we always blame that and everyone blames this and that person blames that, is when I've been in a room with all of them together, everyone's nodding in agreement and everyone's wants to do the same thing. So just remember that whatever's happening, in reality, the person you think's against you is probably with you.
Yeah.
But there may be people behind them, limiting them. Like when you were that caseworker and the person came back, oh no, we've got to cut all this back.
Yeah.
That didn't change. You didn't. Okay, I'll stop being a horrible person now.
This is it, yeah. Because I'm telling you, like that. I was like man in the match every day. Oh yeah. Oh what? Did they really? And the thing is, it's some parents were like, what? They really agreed. I'm like, yeah. Oh okay, that's great then. Just like I was giving them everything, but it's like, because obviously there's a budget, there's this, there's that, there's so many different things that we have to factor. Are we challenging our local schools that you can actually meet this child's needs? Or maybe we can put a top-up fund into the end of the academic year, review it and see what we can do from there. Maybe have to swap a TA. There's like little things. When I worked in a special school, there was this big, massive kid I used to work with. He didn't listen to anybody in that school apart from this tiny little Irish lady. He didn't listen to anybody. But the thing is, he fit in that school because they found the right member of staff to work with him, and he was fine and he was settled. But if you kept forcing him to work with somebody he's not got a good connection relationship with, of course he's going to have a meltdown, of course he's going to kick off. I think schools don't think like that anymore. But in special schools, they're forced to think like that.
To me, the big difference between special schools and mainstream schools, specialist schools have the time to build relationships.
Yes, they do.
And that's ultimately it. Everything else is not. That's the biggest difference. Is actually as soon as you start to build those relationships, other things just start working.
Yeah, and they're not too obsessed with the academic side. They're actually looking at other aspects, life skills, social engagement, stuff like that.
There's loads. There's a school up Teesside Way, up in Newcastle, Sunderland Way, where you go into their playground, you drive in, and you're literally, it's really weird. When you first drive in the first night, it's quite sure you have traffic lights in front of you and a Pelican crossing and this crossing and that crossing. And they have all the different crossings in the car park.
Oh, wow.
So the kids can learn how to cross the road.
That's brilliant.
And all this stuff, you're literally going, that is so cool. And you're driving in and the traffic light stops you and you're going, I'm in a car park and I'm stopping at a red light because there are some kids crossing the road.
Yeah.
But it teaches them those skills. It's working out for this child what is the right curriculum, what actually is their future going to look like, and how can we help them get there.
It's so important.
Right. Thanks for coming on the show today. Absolutely loved.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Loved the passionate conversation. And As always, if you want to find out more about what Nana does, I've shared his social media channels for SEN Bytes, the SEN Bytes website, and also his email address, and you'll find all of those wherever you listen to the podcast or on the SENcast website. And thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, or have a go at guessing what will be in the white paper in a slightly positive note, not just a full-on negative. Please message us on social media or send an email to hello@thesencast.com. And if you have enjoyed the SENcast, why not look into SENcast Sessions, our online CPD that you can purchase for your school. Each session is £10, but it is yours forever. So you can build up a library of CPD around SEN that everyone in your school can access. You can watch it as many times as you want. We also run our free SEN briefings twice a year, designed to help everyone keep up to date with the changes going on in the world of SEN. And when the white paper comes out, there will be a briefing. Head over to the SENcast website to find out more about SENcast sessions, and you'll find a link to it in the show notes as well. But for now, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the SENcast. It's goodbye from me.
See you guys later. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye.